A second semester senior, didn't know if I was going to go to college. And a sophomore counselor came to me and said, "Are you going to college?" Number one, I'm the senior class president. Number two, I'm a good athlete. Number three, I'm a good student. Actually, number three is number one. I was a good student, because I could take sports or I could leave it. But for whatever reason, and part of it had to do with my activism in the community, the folks who you would think that would assist me in getting a college opportunity did not. And so a sophomore counselor went out of her way and helped me get an academic scholarship to Drury. Second semester senior. When I moved back here, she read that I moved back and I got this position. She called me up, and I hadn't seen that lady I hadn't talked to her in 40 years. And she called me up and she welcomed me back to Springfield. So there are a lot of good folks here who, want to make a difference. And she reached out to me, and if I hadn't got that college education, who knows what I would have been or done, But because of that lady and those two men, I've been able to make a difference in my personal life and my family's life. But I think I've been able to impact people wherever I've gone. And that, to me, is what public affairs is all about. I'm fond of saying, you have to step up, you got to stand up, you have to stay up. Because, believe me, the challenges that we face as a nation and as the world, but certainly as a nation and certainly as a state, they're daunting. And it's going to take our best and brightest, to address these issues and to find solutions to them. Make a difference. There's a group called the Network out of the Chamber of Commerce. They went to the City Council and presented a study that talked about the benefits of diversity and the adverse effect of not having a diverse community. And then you listen, and then you read the blogs associated with those articles, and you understand that there are still people who, they want things to be like they were years ago. I want America to be like it was. Well, for me, America was not that great growing up, or for people who look like me. And it's the same thing about people with a different orientation, sexual orientation. Same thing about black, brown, yellow, Native Americans. What America was not that great. So the promise of America is what, most people are trying to get excited about. It's the promise of America. Challenge to me is to inspire young people to do the right thing and to continue to invest and get involved in their community. Based on the history of Springfield and the 1906 lynchings, and I did all right. I've done all right, but it was some people who reached out to me, and most of those individuals were Caucasian. The ones who made a difference in my life. So, support comes from anybody who's willing to say, "Hey, I want to help you make a difference in your life," because then you'll be able to make a difference in other people's lives. Last semester, there was a little Chinese girl, and she had just gotten here, and she was, at the shuttle, didn't know where to go, and so I spent some time with her on the shuttle, talking with her, and, explaining to her the shuttle system, and, riding with her a couple of shuttle, just to show her, and what the thing about that is, I'm an older gentleman, right? She sort of reached out to me, and I tried to help her. But I think our students, you have so much more influence with students your age, with people your age, or with younger people than, Then there was a Chinese student when I was working upstairs last year. She was a graduate student here. And she would just come to learn English, to improve her English. And so every day she would just come into my office and we'd have conversation. And we'd talk about whatever. But she was improving her English, to take time with someone, to do those sorts of things without belittling them or making them feel inferior because they don't speak English very well. We live in a state that, they passed a state law. English is the official language. But what message does that send? What difference does it make if you speak English, and the official language of Missouri is English? Well, gee, thanks. I hadn't figured that out. And I grew up here, born in 1950, grew up here since, at least 1951, and I've always spoken English, so you didn't have to pass that law, but what it does, it sends the wrong messages. It sends the wrong signal. It sends a message, "Oh, I'm superior to you because I speak English and I speak it well, and you need to speak." Well, if you go out into the rural areas or you go in the South, Southeast Missouri and you listen to people speak, you know, come on now. You can't really understand them. And they speak in English, arguably, you know. But it's what we do with, you know, what symbolic stuff that we do, the political stuff that we do, you know. So our international students need to feel welcome. And I think since 9/11, it's been a little bit more difficult to do because in a community like Springfield, people just have narrow perspectives. They don't have the exposure. And so we've got to create ways that allow that exposure to happen so people could grow. But certainly we need to make sure that our students, our international students, feel more welcome here. And this is just based on, you know, I've had African students, Indian students, Chinese students share their perspectives, you know. And it can be kind of daunting. You know, when y'all do those study away programs and y'all go to a foreign country and you're over immersed in their culture, I mean, that can be kind of daunting, you know. But just think, you know, and then if you don't know the language, you know, and I was listening to some of our study away students, our students have gone on those study away programs, and it was a challenging experience. But they're generally only there for what, a couple of weeks maybe, or a semester maybe, but to be here for 4 years, you know, or 2 years, that could be a daunting experience. And so everybody needs, you know, and I think it'll also improve us, you know. I mean, I learned some things just by interfacing with those students, you know, or having a conversation with them, you know. The Islamic Center was, you know, defaced, graffiti and stuff. I mean, those are things, you know, and so, you know, students can be speaking out against that. You know, they can, you know, the NAACP, when we did the march, we took up a collection from the people who attended the program after the march to go to the repair of the Islamic Center, you know, and let them know, you know. And the president in his speech the other night, if you saw the State of the Union address, he pointed out that, you know, we have Muslim, there are Americans who are Muslim, and they are our brothers, they are our family. I mean, and Congress gave him a standing ovation. You know, they stood up for that, you know. There's a lot of things they didn't stand up for, but certainly, you know, we have sometimes in America this sort of fear of people who are different. But, you know, find ways to engage together, do some things together. You know, in your class, you know, reach out to somebody who's, you know, a lot of times black students or students of color feel like they're isolated, you know, because, you know, I understand everybody's, you know, but I'm going to tell you, when I was in law school, you know, we had study groups, and they were multicultural, multi-ethnic study groups. But we also worked together to recruit students to law school, and whether they were black or Chicano or Asian or disadvantaged white students, I mean, we all did that together.